Hey guys, welcome to another video on my channel Hairliciously. Today I wanted to talk about the topic of finasteride. Yes, I know that there's a lot of people when it comes to the topic of finasteride. It's highly debated. People that just seem so divided when it comes to using finasteride for the treatment of hair loss. And since it's almost been a year since I've used finasteride, I wanted to share with you guys my experience, give you guys my opinion, and I just wanted to kind of go over some of the things that's been on my mind and share with you guys some of the things that I think would be helpful when it comes to determining whether or not you should be taking finasteride to treat hair loss. So like I said, finasteride, also known as its brand name Propecia, is a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, and its medical management is to treat male pattern baldness, which was FDA approved back in 1997. It was found out through the treatment of enlarged prostates in 1992, where they actually started approving finasteride 5 milligrams to treat enlarged prostates. But they soon realized that it also regrew hair and treated hair loss in men suffering from male pattern baldness. So with that said, there's a lot of common questions when it comes to the usage of finasteride. There's a lot of people who are worried about the possible side effects of finasteride, which include sexual dysfunction, low libido. There's people that worry about gyno, having larger breasts, people that worry about brain fog, depression, issues having an erection. There's so many things, and I feel like reports in the press, things that are presented in the media, kind of all contributed to this image of this drug, and it pretty much led to like this apprehension in the minds of patients when it comes to using finasteride. And there's a lot of doctors and dermatologists who are actually even hesitant to prescribe finasteride on a long-term basis because of this. So I wanted to kind of talk about some of the things that I feel would be relevant when it comes to finasteride, and also give you guys my personal experience from using it for almost a year. So I've been using it for almost a year. When I went to South Korea to get my hair transplant done, they actually prescribed me 0.5 milligrams of dutasteride, which is actually a stronger version. So if you guys think of maybe like finasteride on steroids, that would be what dutasteride is. There's a lot of unknown side effects when it comes to dutasteride, but it's also FDA approved in South Korea, and it's been pretty effective to treating hair loss, but there's also a higher risk of unknown side effects. So I did not opt for dutasteride, but instead when I came back to the US after I had my procedure, I went to my dermatologist and I told her to prescribe me 1 milligram of finasteride. Now at first, when I started for the first couple months, I didn't really think much of it until I actually started looking deeper into finasteride, some of the side effects, the research that it's based on. And I read a lot of mixed reviews on finasteride, some saying that, it's very safe. It's, it's been out for over 20 years. And then there's other articles, publications that say that it can lead to depression, sexual dysfunction. It can also cause brain damage. I've even read one that said that it can cause Alzheimer's or multiple sclerosis. So I think after reading that, I was like, oh my God, why am I taking this drug when it's just for my hair? I'd rather give up my hair than to go through all these things that can, harm the body. So I stopped for about 2 months. And I was determined to actually do a lot of research into the topic of finasteride to really dig in and kind of separate facts from fiction. I wanted to do my own research and read on the publications and research that's been done on a scientific level. 2 main researches that's been done on a long-term basis. There's one which was a 5-year Propecia study. That one was double-blinded and it was a placebo-controlled and involved about 1,500 people. The conclusion was that the side effects were very minimal. It was rare. I think it was around the 1.8% versus 1.3% on placebo for less desire for sex. And then difficulty in achieving an erection was 1.3% versus 0.7% on placebo. And a decrease in semen upon ejaculation, which was 0.8% versus 0.4%. So all sexual side effects actually went away in men who discontinued using Propecia in that study. There was another 10-year study by some of the Italians, which wasn't a double-blinded or placebo-controlled study, but about 6% of people only suffered from side effects. There was one more. There was a prostate cancer prevention trial, which involved 17,000 participants. And the 7-year study was double-blinded and placebo-controlled, which is always a good thing because you don't know who the users are or the researchers are. And so even on that research, it was concluded that finasteride's impact on sexual function is minimal in most men. I think this also applies in my case, in my own personal experience. I don't have any side effects. It's been a year since I've taken finasteride, and there's no reason why I would lie about like my side effects of taking finasteride, because it's not like I'm getting paid by Merck or whatever company that makes finasteride. I just wanted to share with you guys my experience because there's so many people who are scared of taking it, and I think based on the studies it's okay, but that's not to say that there aren't going to be side effects. And by side effects I'm talking about some of the unknown side effects, because so the other thing that I did read was that it can actually cause neurological problems when using finasteride. Finasteride can alter the neural steroids in the brain and the nervous system. And there was a study, I wanna say that they were like sheep, I think. They did research on sheep or some type of mammals that did take finasteride, and it was found that they actually were indicative of Alzheimer's or multiple sclerosis. I mean, that's one thing, because when you're doing these tests on animals, they kind of reflect how it would actually work out on humans. That's not always necessarily the case, but we do base a lot of the tests on animals before we actually move on to human trials. So that's kind of something to think about. If it actually adversely affected mammals, then there's a good chance that it can also negatively affect human beings. But the bad thing is that we really haven't been testing people, and there's really no way that we can actually test them, because it's like you're taking finasteride and then we're not focusing on like one area, and we're not studying, let's say, like the brain and how it functions or alters after using finasteride for 10-20 years. It's just like taking any other medication, like taking aspirin for example. There's aspirin's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we still don't know the full effects of how it can affect the body long term. For example, we don't know how it's going to affect, let's say, like the liver if you use it for like a long-term basis. So I think the same principle applies when it comes to using finasteride. We really can't pinpoint just to one area, and that's why there's a lot of unknowns, because it's only been out for 20 years or 21 years, and we haven't really studied different aspects, let's say like the brain, or how it's going to affect the heart, or how it's going to affect the liver, alter your hormones. There's a lot of things where it actually hasn't been tested on. In that sense, I think there's a lot of unknowns, but that's also a risk that you guys would have to take if you guys end up taking finasteride or Propecia for hair loss. But from my experience, it's been 1 year since I've taken finasteride. I don't have any side effects. I don't have any issues when it comes to sexual function. I don't have, dizziness, heart palpitations, anything like that. It's just pretty much pop a pill a day. And I think that's one of the reasons why I pretty much have not continued to recede on my hairline. So the other thing is, if you do end up getting a hair transplant, a lot of people ask me, hey, what do you do so that the hairs behind it isn't going to recede further? Well, you have two options. You have finasteride, which you can take. You also have minoxidil, but minoxidil is not going to get to the root of the cause of hair loss by treating DHT. Finasteride is. So there's two ways. You can take finasteride. You can take the risk based on the studies that we see right now, the 5-year and 10-year, and a lot of the self-purported experience from using finasteride. There's a lot of people that say that there's no side effects, or there's not as much side effects when it comes to using finasteride, versus not taking it and running into the risk of losing more hair past the hair transplanted areas. So I think if you solely want to get a hair transplant and not stay on finasteride, you should at least on the minimum stay on minoxidil and some type of nice roll shampoo or something like that to slow down male pattern baldness. But if you are not going to take finasteride at all after getting a hair transplant, make sure it's a very conservative hair transplant, because you are going to continue to bald. You're going to have less hair tomorrow than you did today, regardless of whether you're balding or not, just because as we age, we are going to continue to lose hair. And so if you guys end up getting a hair transplant and not going to be taking finasteride, make sure to get a hairline that's going to be very conservative, because you want to have enough donor supply to cover the rest of the hairs and also take into consideration of further hair loss. So that's why in my case, I am still taking finasteride. I might just cut down to 0.5 milligrams because I've seen some pretty good results. And it's not like I'm suffering from a severe form of hair loss in the beginning, but behind the hair transplant areas, I don't seem to have any type of hair loss because of the fact that I'm taking finasteride. But I mean, I've been pretty blessed right now. I don't have any side effects. So I actually do know a few people that are taking finasteride and they also don't have any side effects. I know some people in Korea who actually take dutasteride and they don't have side effects. So, I mean, this is just based on personal experience. If you go to some of the forums where they talk about post-finasteride syndrome, they have like their own foundation and organization where they talk about, how they have different types of side effects after using finasteride for, like 2, 3, 4 years after usage. The other thing is some of the studies that we're based on are from people that are specifically from those online sources or online websites where they're already suffering from side effects of finasteride. So you really have to be careful what you research because sometimes the research can be biased. So in conclusion, and as you guys can tell, I do advocate taking finasteride if you guys are balding. And a lot of the times, people who are actually suffering from a severe form of hair loss actually regret not getting on finasteride prior because they could have saved that much hair had they been on finasteride a lot quicker. But we know that this drug does work. It's very effective when it comes to treating male pattern baldness. And it's the only one that's FDA approved in the US that treats the root cause of male pattern baldness. And the effects are proven to work. We know that studies show that it's safe to use for the most part with minimal side effects. And based on my experience, like anything, hair loss is a cosmetic condition. It's not a medical problem. And you always have the option to take it or not to take it. And you can always start with a lower dosage to see if it actually works. If it does work, there's no reason for you to up it to 1 milligram per day. You can try off by starting 0.25 milligrams and see how that works and just move on forward. So I'll leave it at this. We know that these side effects are very minimal based on the studies, and the majority of the people that do end up taking finasteride for treating male pattern baldness are not going to experience these side effects. Now, that's not to say that there's people that are suffering from these symptoms and side effects aren't real. I do believe them, but it's a very small minority, and the majority of the people are not going to experience any side effects. The other thing is there's a thing called the nocebo effect, where if you know all these side effects, if you researched all of these things ahead of time before taking finasteride, you actually can have a higher percentage of experiencing the same side effects just because psychologically you know that these side effects exist. But based on experience, based on the research that I've done, the majority of the people are not going to have any side effects, and there's no evidence that that says that finasteride is going to cause multiple sclerosis or lead to Alzheimer's, anything like that. So all of my research is based on studies and research and also from personal experience. Like I said, I don't have any side effects, and based on the research that I've been doing, I think that finasteride is still a very safe and effective drug in treating male pattern baldness. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. Feel free to subscribe, like this video, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.